When I moved to the coast for my graduate program, I didn't expect to be so isolated. My new rooms consisted of a bedroom, bathroom, and a tiny kitchen on the second floor of a house that belonged to Mrs. Scott, an older woman who spent most of her time at her daughter's apartment on Main Street. The few times we found ourselves in the house at the same time, she tiptoed around downstairs and greeted me with frigid politeness in the mornings. I don't think we exchanged more than 2 sentences a week. But it was really the location of my house, along with my personal circumstances, that led to an uneasy mixture of melancholy and dread. It was perched near the top of a promontory that jutted out over the bay. While the view of the water and the distant shore should have been beautiful, it held instead a sort of muted menace, as though the small houses and stunted trees scattered across the sides of the mountains had been placed there purely by chance, and could be knocked asunder like matchsticks. Behind the house lay an impenetrable tangle of brambles and scraggly evergreens, and in the mornings I often watched deer families make their careful way through the brush, ears swiveling in constant alarm. Like Mrs. Scott, my neighbors were coldly cordial but kept to themselves. I mentioned my personal circumstances. As a just graduated college student, I was perpetually broke and I didn't have a car. The surprisingly low-rent apartment that Mrs. Scott offered, coupled with its relative closeness to campus, about a mile away, made my living situation appealing on paper, but shortly upon arriving, I discovered that the city bus neglected to make its way up to the top of the hill to the bus stop near my house. More often than not, I had to walk to and from class. Now, I'm no slouch when it comes to outdoorsy stuff. Growing up, me and my brother, we went camping with our dad every summer, and during college, I hiked a good portion of the Appalachian Trail with my then girlfriend. But there was something different about this hill. It was well paved and not really that steep, but I found myself wet with a sweat aching all over upon reaching the bottom. Going home was worse, especially at night if I hadn't managed to catch a ride. The starless sky pressed upon me, the vague nocturnal shadows of the trees, and the streetlights curved over me, so that I felt as though I walked through an endless black tunnel. The hill also distorted my perception of time, so that it sometimes took me 15 minutes to climb up or down, and other times it was closer to an hour. And of course, I can't forget the fog. Due to a particular configuration of sea, land, and air, the surrounding area experienced constant temperature and weather changes, and a byproduct of these atmospheric fluctuations were thick rolling clouds that often appeared suspended over the bay, motionless. Someone had told me that the fog usually dissipated upon reaching land, that it rarely made its way up the mountain, until one day, it did. I woke up early that Tuesday. My first class wasn't until 9:30, and I felt like going for a quick run down by the beach. We'd been having a week of miserable weather, drizzling rain and gusts of wind that saturated everything and everyone with a stench of salt. But now the air felt pleasant and cool, and it was still. I got dressed in near darkness with my curtains closed and grabbed my thermos and backpack and tiptoed downstairs to the front door. Upon opening it, I was greeted by a white wall. Never go out walking in the fog. Several people had told me this right after my arrival in town. A strange, solemn phrase, spoken with an air of fear and awe that had irritated me at the time. What business is it of anyone else when and where I choose to walk? I had shrugged it off then, and I did so now, albeit with a little more reluctance. The fog was really thick, and it had a semi-solid, viscous quality to it. It pressed against my skin as though seeking entrance through my pores. I brushed aside this ridiculous thought and stepped forward, and the mist evaporated before me like smoke from an extinguished flame. Of course, it's only water. I glanced behind me. The fog had swept down again like a heavy silk curtain, hiding the house and trees from view. I felt something close to anger. I just wanted to go for a run. Why was this so difficult to accomplish? I strode forwards toward the main road, resolving to start looking for new accommodations. $200 more per month was worth it, if only for peace of mind. It must have been only a few steps later when I realized what a mistake I'd made. I had no idea where I was. I had no idea if I was even standing upright. The road may well have been the sky. Indistinct shadows of trees and other unknowable things bulged at the edges of my vision. My eyes burned from the whiteness, and when I slammed my eyes shut to try to escape the awful glare, the space behind my eyelids swirled with pale rivulets of mist. I was completely and utterly lost, but I wasn't alone. You know that feeling when you're expecting a friend to jump out from behind the corner and startle you? You're not absolutely sure he's there. After all, you can't see him, and he won't answer your call. So you walk forward, your heart pounding and adrenaline flooding through your body, and the edge draws closer with every step. You're telling yourself that he's probably not there, and even if he is there, you're ready for him. But in the end, it doesn't matter. All that matters is the sick anticipation rising like brackish water and becoming the only thing you know. My skin, muscles, bones were gone. I was entirely composed of raw nerves, buoyed by the fog. Every step forward or back was a step towards my doom. Every painful thump of my heart marked the eventual confrontation. For now, it was observing me with cold curiosity. And then I heard it coming. I don't remember the next few moments very clearly because I was temporarily lost in what remained of my mind. No matter where I darted, the sound was always in front of me and getting louder, a relentless creaking and grinding as it scraped its way towards me on bony limbs. I think I fell more than once. I think I screamed my throat raw, my cries suffocated by the fog. "Honey, it's okay. I've got you. Grab a hold of my hand. There you go." It was a woman's voice, warm and vibrant and full of life. As she spoke, the impenetrable clouds seemed to thin just a little. And though whatever was stalking me was still out there, her presence held it at bay. I couldn't see my savior, but her hand was strong and calloused in my own. I dared to open my eyes and saw a gangly structure in front of me. The creaking noise continued, and I realized that it came from a rusty metal swing set in motion by the breeze. We were standing in a small playground. The woman led me towards the swings, still speaking in her comforting voice. "Used to come here all the time with my kids when they were small. They've all gone away now. Time sure flies, doesn't it?" She guided me towards the swings and sat down on the other. I squinted through the fog but could only make out a dim silhouette beside me. Judging from the sound of her voice and her general carriage, she was middle-aged. "How did you find me? Do you live around here?" When I spoke, my voice was strained and cracked as though from disuse. "Yeah, lived up on this old hill all of my life. We don't often get such nasty weather up here, but when we do, well, people say it's better to stay inside. Good thing for you, I don't like to listen to other people. My name's Alma McHugh, by the way." She proffered her hand and I shook it. I'd rarely met anyone who so exuded such a sense of well-being and warmth. Alma and I spoke for a while. At some point, we began walking down the hill together towards the town proper, and though she didn't take my hand again, she was a comforting presence at my side. The fog was still thick, and I have no idea how Alma was able to navigate it with such ease, but as she'd said, she'd lived in the area for over 40 years. I told her about my graduate program and my family back east, and my mother's suicide attempts, and her subsequent stay in a mental health facility, our strained relationship, everything. Alma was especially sympathetic. "Honey, let me tell you something as a mother of 3 boys. Your mama loves you more than anything else in the world. It might sometimes be hard for her to emphasize it, and it sounds like she's going through some tough times right now, but never doubt her love. I know she'd go to the ends of the earth for you." I don't remember what else we talked about. As soon as we reached the road that turned into Main Street, the fog was gone, brushed away like an old cobweb. I turned towards Alma to invite her for a cup of coffee, but she must have turned back at some point to return to her house. Staring up at the hill, still enshrouded with the mist, I felt some of that nameless fear return, and I quickly turned away and headed towards downtown. Going for a run was out of the question now. Besides, I only had a half an hour before class started. The owner Mike greeted me as I entered, but frowned upon catching sight of my face. "You look pretty stressed out, man. Everything okay?" "Yeah, just a weird morning." Mike handed me a steaming mug and waved away the bills I tried to hand him. "On the house." He began wiping down the counters and then asked in a tone of exaggerated casualness without looking up, "Hope you didn't get caught in the fog. Heard it was pretty bad this morning." "I did, actually," I replied, watching him carefully. His movement slowed and then stilled entirely as I spoke. "You know, I live up on the hill, and I got totally turned around, couldn't see anything. I'd probably still be there if it wasn't for this lady who helped me find my way." Mike looked at me. "Lady? Do you know anyone by the name of Alma McHugh? I wanted to thank her for helping me out, but didn't get the chance." "Alma McHugh? Yeah, I know her. Everybody does," he replied, his face set in grim lines. "You're lucky she liked you. Didn't I tell you not to go walking around in the fog?" I interrupted him. "But who is she anyway?" Mike shook his head and laughed a little. "Alma McHugh, born in 1902, died 1948. Don't believe me? Check out the local cemetery. She lived up on that hill all of her life, her and her 3 little boys. On the night she died, she was taking them out to the playground, and then the fog rolled in. The poor woman lost her mind. They found her 2 days later, with her throat slashed. Suicide. She'd gone for her kids first." He stopped, swallowed, and then spoke in a strained whisper. "They were never able to find all the body parts."